Hello everyone, it's Lel, and since Delicious Party PreCure is coming to an end, it is time to theorize. GODATZ is the big baddie of this season, but we don't really know who GODATZ is. And we don't even know if GODATZ actually exists. But in this video, we're going to share a theory and a very big possibility that was probably in front of our eyes since the start of the season. GODATZ is FENNEL. And for this, we have, or most specifically, Inu has analyzed lots of passages from Delicious Party itself to prove that FENNEL is working as GODATZ at the same time that he's working as a cook fighter in Cooking. So to start, we have been theorizing since the start of the season about GODATZ's identity. There were theories that GODATZ could be the cat that Yui feeds in episode 2 when she was a child in a flashback, or when she was a young child, because Yui is still a child, but when she was a very young child, she fed a cat, and we thought that might have been GODATZ, might have turned into GODATZ. We thought that GODATZ might have been Ginger. We thought that GODATZ might have been even Secreturu, or maybe a lost recipe that was abandoned because no one liked that specific food, and they rebelled against food lovers and humanity in general. But at the end of the day, we ultimately don't really know who GODATZ is. We're very close to episode 41, which will probably give us a clear answer, but it seems that based on everything that happened so far in Delicious Party, the biggest candidate for being GODATZ is actually FENNEL. And I wasn't really keen on this idea before because I really love FENNEL and I didn't want him to be the villain, but looking at everything, it makes sense, and it would create FENNEL as this big villain who isn't actually a villain. It seems that FENNEL has some sort of tragic outcome for him to become GODATZ, kind of like Butler in Tropical-Rouge PreCure, and he was doing what he was doing because of a huge, insane passion inside of him. That might be the case with FENNEL, so we're gonna analyze that now. So what can be the reasoning behind FENNEL being GODATZ? We have a very important character in Delicious Party that hasn't appeared very much, but has been mentioned throughout the season, who is Rosemary's and FENNEL's master, Ginger. Ginger is someone who is very important to Cookingdom, and he seems to be very important to the human world as well, as at least Oishina Town. He is the one who probably created everything that made possible for the cures to exist in this world, and for the girls to become cures to battle a future threat. He created this Hoka Hoka Hearts accumulator in Oishina Town. He is the one who created the Delicious Stones, and he's the one who trained Mari, FENNEL, Cinnamon, and maybe even others that we don't even know. But he created the Delicious Stones, the special Delicious Stones, and probably even the concept of cook fighters. He is extremely important. And right now in Delicious Party, we don't really know where Ginger is. For what Rosemary has been saying, Ginger is dead, but the series has never really confirmed this information. They kind of left it in the dark, and we don't really know if he is actually dead or not. It's interesting because in the season we have another character who is deceased, and the season has made it very clear that she is deceased since a long time ago, which is Yone, who is Yui's grandma. So yeah, the series can do that. The narrative can do that if they want to. But they're purposefully living Ginger's destiny very, very cloudy. We don't really know what happened to Ginger. And when Mari talked to FENNEL and said that they met Ginger when they went back in time, FENNEL seemed really shocked. And there seemed to be some sort of emotional involvement in that moment. So FENNEL's motivation can all be related to the fact that he wants to meet Ginger Again, he wants to reunite with his master Ginger, and that is why he's doing everything he is doing as GODATZ and creating the Bunderu gang and attacking and doing everything so that he can be reunited with Ginger again. And there are some very interesting indications that FENNEL is doing lots of things to discover important information from Mari, the Cures, and Amane, and even from the Bunderu gang. If we look back at episode 19, when he was talking to Amane, and Amane was sharing details from when she was Gentlu, he asked her if she knew anything else. Because if she knew something more than what she appeared to know, that could have ruined his plans. So that is something that would allow him to further his plans without surprises, or to actually use the information that Amane had to rearrange his plans. In episode 39, when he learns that Mari met with Ginger in the past, he asks a leading question in an attempt to gain information, but obviously not to cast suspicion on himself. He asks Mari, which part of Oishina town is that accumulator at? We know that Ginger has created a Hoka Hoka Hearts accumulator in Oishina town. We don't know where it is. There are certain indications in the show in where it can be, but nothing is confirmed. Why did FENNEL need to know this information? Well, you can say, well, he is a cook fighter, so it's important for him to know those details, but it's obviously something that also can point out to the fact that if he knew where this Hoka Hoka Hearts accumulator is, he can destroy that. Or he can work around the fact that he knows where it is to create certain plans for it not to work or something like that, so that his plans as GODATZ can move further. And there's also the fact that Bunderu gang seems to know a lot of things. And most of those things, they're not supposed to know unless they were in Cooking Kingdom. For example, in the first episode, we see that the recipe bond has been stolen, and the Bunderu gang knew that someone was gonna come after them for the book. And well, this can be an obvious thing. Yeah, you stole something and yeah, someone will come after you, and well, this might have been obvious, but at the same time, you can argue that they only knew when or where they would be attacked because they had tactical information concerning that, and that information could have come from inside Cook Kingdom. And talking about Cook Kingdom, it's very easy for Secretoru and the Spiritoru bots to go to Cook Kingdom. They have been to Cook Kingdom twice. Secretoru seems to know her way around Cook Kingdom, and the Spiritoru bots had no trouble in finding Narcisoru's cell inside the Cook Kingdom prison. So how do they know that? It would make a lot of sense if they have inside information from Cook Kingdom. And from all the Cook Kingdom characters we know, the only one who would actually make sense is FENNEL. And also in episode 37, we have the information that Narcisoru was going to share the Bunderu gang plans. Why was it so important to erase him, and how did they know that at that moment Narcisoru could have shared some sort of information? Again, insider. And so with all that information, there are some other important things for us to look at, which are: the accumulator is probably the giant Maneki Neko in town, and there might be a reason for that. Another thing is that the uniforms from the Bunderu gang are very resemblant of Ginger's costumes. And if we have a character who is obsessed with Ginger and wants Ginger back, it's very easy for that character to want to pay homage to their idol, to the one that they admire or love the most. So that would make sense. The costumes being very similar to Ginger's costume make a lot of sense if the leader is someone who admires Ginger a lot. GODATZ might not even exist as in a creature that is called GODATZ. It might be some sort of Wizard of Oz situation in which we have some sort of machine who is just there, and there is a voice behind it pretending to be something that they aren't. And the technology that is used for GODATZ to appear is very similar from the technology we see from the watch that communicates with Cookingdom. So is that the same type of technology with some little alterations? And in episode 29, when the girls go to the past, we have the information that to traverse worlds, you need 2 special delicious stones or Komekome's power. So, for Komekome, the Cures are the only ones who can use that power because, well, Komekome is Yui's partner. But we've seen some world traveling from characters that aren't the Cures. The Cures use Komekome's power. What about Secret-Rouge? How is she traveling worlds? How are the Bunderu gang members able to travel to other dimensions? Because the Bunderu gang hideout is in another dimension. And how is Secret-Rouge able to go to Cookingdom? Well, they are using delicious stones. But the special delicious stones aren't here. I mean, one is with Mari, one is with FENNEL. Now let's take a look at some screenshots and lines from the show to further prove our point. In episode 26, Mari is talking about the special delicious stones and they're sharing information. Mari and FENNEL are the ones who have the special delicious stones. And well, they're saying that the only one who was able to create delicious stones was Ginger. And Ginger doesn't exist anymore. And in the same episode, they are also sharing an idea of a prototype. And if we're talking about a prototype, we're talking about something that isn't perfected, something that is not the original. If it was Ginger, he wouldn't need a prototype. He would be able to create delicious stones without having to create prototype ones. Maybe, just maybe, this one is trying to imitate what Ginger did in the past. In episode 29, we have more information concerning the traveling between worlds. As we talked about, we need 2 special delicious stones. So, how is the Bunderu gang traversing if they don't have special delicious stones? Maybe the prototypes were able to create delicious stones that have some sort of properties that are very similar to the special delicious stone. Also in episode 29, we have this shot of FENNEL, and in the exact next second, we have Bunderu gang arriving. Kinda suspicious, isn't it? In this episode, FENNEL also learns that Mari and the Cures know that Cinnamon was framed in the past for stealing the recipe bond. And in this shot, we can see FENNEL kind of glaring after learning about this. Maybe this is something that Mari shouldn't have known. From the same episode, in episode 29, we know that it's very important for the villains to capture recipes, and there seem to be lots of recipes in Cookingdom. Why doesn't Secret-Rouge attack there? And she says that in episode 29, she says that it's very hard to capture recipes in Cookingdom. And then we have the mighty GODATZ congratulating her for getting recipes there. So it's kind of like this reasoning behind why the Bunderu gang doesn't attack Cookingdom more than they did in the series. In episode 37, we see FENNEL talking to Mari about Ginger. And he shares the information that Ginger came to Earth when the recipe bond was stolen. But Ginger stayed on Earth after a while, after retrieving the recipe bond, but he doesn't know the reason. It kind of seemed that he wanted that information. Why did Ginger stay on Earth? And Mari says that they'll do some research and that might lead onto some important information for FENNEL. In episode 38, when the Cures go to the past, they talk to Ginger, and Ginger shares an important information. They are talking about the fact that Cinnamon was framed in the past, but Ginger doesn't know how they planned it so perfectly that there was no question that it was actually Cinnamon who did it. When Men Men and Pum Pum are using their powers to create the Hoka Hoka Hearts accumulator, they say that their memories are going to get erased by their own will. And they also share the information that the Hoka Hoka Hearts is going to be in a place that no one would notice. At that time, Yone was being so big of an influence in Oishina town that Maneki Nekos were scattered around everywhere. So if they were to hide the Hoka Hoka Hearts accumulator in a Maneki Neko, it would be in plain sight without no one actually knowing where it is. And then, in episode 39, we have another interesting point in the story. In episode 37, Fennel asked Mari to investigate why Ginger stayed on Earth after getting the recipe bond. And Mari did that and shared this information with Fennel in episode 39. In their dialogue, we can see that Fennel was surprised by knowing that Ginger created a Hoka Hoka Hearts accumulator. And Mari reinstates that Ginger extended his stay in Oishina town to create the Hoka Hoka Hearts accumulator. And then this dialogue shows that Fennel is curious as to why Ginger created the accumulator, and Mari shares the information that Ginger knew that there was going to be a crisis in the future. This seems to be a very shocking information for Fennel. And when Fennel learns that Mari met Ginger in the past, he gets very, very shocked. It's kind of a long pause, and it's interesting because it's a few seconds, but it seems like an eternity when you're watching the episode because there's this weird silence. And this weird silence can mean lots of things. When I watched it, I interpreted it as, wow, Mari met him and I didn't. It was kind of like this sad emotional feeling for not being able to meet the past master, while also having this sort of jealousy for not being the one who met Ginger. And there's also the fact that if he is the one that is behind everything, meeting Ginger in the past for Mari could be a way, an easier way for them to bust Fennel's plan. So he might have been worried. I think it's a mix of the two. And the fact that he got emotional over that further reinstates the theory that he is doing it for emotional reasons. He is doing it for feelings, for things that he feels about Ginger. And then Fennel makes a very weird question to Mari. Where in Oishina town is the accumulator? Why does Fennel need to know that? I mean, you can argue that Fennel needs to know that to protect it because, well, he's a cookfighter, and since he seems to love Ginger so much, he needs to protect whatever Ginger left behind. But this is something that can easily be seen as, I need to know where this is so that I can put it into consideration into my plans as GODATZ. And then in the same dialogue, we have Mari's inner thoughts. Mari doesn't show us, the narrative doesn't show us where it is, but it shows us that Mari probably knows where it is, but Mari does not share it with Fennel. And then we have some sort of emotional scene of Fennel looking at his delicious stone and smiling, and then Surfel arrives with a report of some sort. We didn't really learn in episode 39 which report that was, but I feel like episode 40 kind of showed us what that is. In episode 40, we learned that the Spiritoru bots had been traveling the world and stealing lots of recipes. Maybe that is Surfel's concerning report, and that is why no one did anything about it. It has been reported to Fennel, and Fennel doesn't want to work against himself. So they could steal the recipes all over the world except for Oishina town, and no one would do a thing because the one who knows about this is the one who is actually doing it. And Fennel shares this information with Cooking, and he says that this has been already done and he asks for forgiveness because he hasn't done anything. It's a clear point of view to me that he is trying to keep his position as a cookfighter and a very respected and important one inside cooking them while also furthering his plans. And there was also a line from the king asking him to tell Mari about this, and Fennel says, I'll do it. Will this information reach Mari? So, we're waiting for episode 41, which seems to be an important Fennel episode and the opener of the last arc of Delicious Party PreCure to introduce us to the last fight and the reasonings behind the villain's actions. Secretary doesn't seem to be doing it for GODATZ, and she's doing it more for herself and for her own wish. And, well, the other villains all had their own reasons. I mean, Narcissiru had his own, which was already worked, and Gentoo didn't have a reason at all. She was brainwashed. So, it leaves us to GODATZ, and only GODATZ. He's been doing it for a reason. And the reason I believe that he's doing it is to meet his beloved master Ginger again. He is trying his best and he's doing everything he can to see if Ginger will return and save the world. That is what I believe. But it's very important for me to say that everything, all of the info, all of the thumbnails and shots from the episodes to further prove this point were all done by Inu, who did an extensive research on Delicious Party to give us this information on Fennel. So Inu, thank you very much. We'll see this weekend if your theory is correct. And this theory has sources. And it has research, baby. Anyways, this is all for now. Saturday is going to be a very exciting day. It's Christmas. It is Fennel. It is Delicious Party. I am so curious. And we are in a very interesting moment for the PreCure franchise. New season coming soon as well. Anyways, babies, this is all for now. I'm going to take this time to thank the members of the Magical Cinema channel. If you are a member, thank you very, very much for your support. I really, really appreciate it. And if you've watched up the channel, thank you so much as well. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, bye-bye.